Testing. Can you guys mic check? Mic check.
Oh, we're checked.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Chris Alaimo.
And I'm Ben Gassaway. Together, we are the Amateur Investors.
This podcast is our open source journal of everything we learn about investing and wealth management.
We're here to explore the key concepts, market dynamics, and investing strategies that will assist you on the path toward financial independence and financial literacy. Our mission is to build us up from amateurs to experts.
All suggestions are our own, and we recommend that you do your own research before taking any investment advice. See you in this week's episode. We hope you enjoy it. Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the show today. As always, we have a special guest for you. She's known as Bitcoin Camila. We're really excited to have her on. I know she's very active on Bitcoin Twitter, and she's the social media manager for SwanBitcoin, a product that Ben and I both love and use. So thank you for coming on the show today, Camila.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be here and just talk Bitcoin with amazing guys. I love to be here.
Yeah, we can't wait. We're so excited for this conversation today. We've been talking a lot about Bitcoin. We promise we'll get back to more investing topics that people have been requesting, but for now it's all Bitcoin. So we'll go right into it. In the news today, or at least this week, time's just flying. Tesla put $1.5 billion worth of US fiat dollars and converted it into Bitcoin. What are your thoughts on that, Camila?
To be honest, I was a little surprised. I remember waking up that morning, my husband was just like, guess who bought Bitcoin? And immediately I was like, Elon Musk. It was him. It has to be him. He has been trolling so much on Twitter. This is just like the way, that he wanted to go. Just troll a little bit and then buy a lot. And I asked him though, I was like, was it SpaceX? Because SpaceX was one of the companies that was in the Michael Saylor's in MicroStrategy's conference. And he said, no, it was Tesla. So that was a little surprising to me. Especially because, like I said, he trolls so much on Twitter, you never know if he's being serious or not. So, yeah, but it was definitely exciting.
You really don't know what Elon Musk is thinking, even though it feels like he does leave a trail of breadcrumbs of truth, because at times, like you said, it does feel like a troll. But he put $1.5 billion, he put his money literally where his mouth is, on this bet. And I really, it's a financial play. And really my biggest takeaway from this move, and anyone feel free to chime in. Someone made a good point. I think it was Preston Pish, in one of his podcast episodes he was on as a guest. He said that, now that Tesla has, I guess it's 17% of net cash, on the balance sheet as Bitcoin, because Tesla is now in the S&P 500. If you own an index fund, you own Bitcoin. And I think that's a major shift in the financial markets. The folks, the pension funds, the 401ks that all have the index funds have Tesla and have Bitcoin. And I think that's a really big statement. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's like,
go ahead.
No, I just want to say people can't get away from it now. And I think it's something that people were expecting it to happen later on in the future, but no, the future is now. Whether you know it or not, you're involved in Bitcoin. And so I think it's an amazing opportunity for people to actually start educating themselves on it, because things are happening super fast. And it feels like, I was thinking about it, I was like, wait, was the Tesla news this week or last week? Because time is just like, running. So people need to get on their stuff, especially people just like us. Like, if you haven't taken the time to read a little bit about Bitcoin and educate yourself, do it now, because it's happening, whether you're on board or not.
Yeah. And it's funny, going back to like CNBC and all the talking heads and the analysts and stuff, a lot of them are still so uneducated. And it's funny coming from our seat, not saying that we know all be all about Bitcoin, but just when you listen to them talk, they really know nothing. I mean, there was a woman on CNBC that was saying, yeah, Bitcoin's too expensive for the retail investor now because a whole Bitcoin's like 37,000. So this is at least a week or two ago. I'm like, they know nothing. They don't know that you can buy fractional parts of a Bitcoin, or, you know, people are scared with, like, when people say, can you pay me in Bitcoin? They assume that it needs to be that whole amount of a Bitcoin cost. And we are so early, even though it seems like you're so late, but it's going to go quick, exactly like you alluded to.
Yeah, Chris, that point, one, I get really frustrated. So we're obviously not endorsed by CNBC, but I get really, really frustrated with CNBC when they give these hand wavy sort of like analyses or lack thereof of analysis, where it's like buy, sell, sell, sell. And it's like, well, you just missed an entire educational opportunity for your listeners. Like, what are you saying? Like, who's paying you to make those arbitrary statements? Like, you're supposed to be sort of educating or informing, but saying buy or sell is not informative. And Chris, your point about Bitcoin, I think ties with a lot of misnomers about, you know, stocks being expensive or Bitcoin being expensive. It's that unit bias, where if you see a high number, you assume that you know the full picture. But there's only 21 million, and it's a fixed it's a fixed supply moving demand. And that function you can calculate. It really is. There's functions for that. You can just Google supply and demand calculator. But I think people get really, really fixated on the price and not necessarily what is the value. And I think people get distracted by that. And clearly, like you said, Chris, the CNBC folks just haven't taken the time to educate themselves, and they have the pressure to report on it. But it would be really humbling to hear, you know what? I don't know. And then people can feel a little bit better about where they're at, and that's okay. Let's just start from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with ego. So you see a whole bunch of big people that are just fighting against Bitcoin and fight it. And at the end of the day, it's like you said, like, just have some humility and admit that you were wrong, and actually lead people to what is going on and to what can be a better future if you actually invest in Bitcoin. And this is just my personal opinion, obviously, because I'm a huge Bitcoiner, but stop letting your ego essentially ruin the lives of these people, or it just doesn't give them a real chance. So it's really sad. For example, I don't know if you guys saw with Saifedean and his book today. Did you guys see those tweets?
Yes.
That are going on?
I missed it. So if you guys fill me in.
So the guy that wrote, what was it, the preface of the book, or
Taleb, right?
Oh, yes.
He wrote the foreword of the Bitcoin Standard with
the foreword.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so he tweeted that he is getting rid of all of his Bitcoin because an asset shouldn't have that type of volatility. And Saifedean just clapped back, and he said, I would like to inform everyone that the next batch of books that are going to be printed out are actually going to have Michael Saylor write the foreword for the book, and bonus, he actually read it. So
it was a real savage tweet, and I just happened to go on Twitter like the one time I go on per month. It's like my lunar cycle. I looked at that and saw those tweets, and he even quoted Taleb from his own book. What it was, Anti-Fragile, and he quoted that for there to be long-term stability, there must be short-term volatility. And he quoted him on that. And I thought that was really powerful. It's like, listen, what is your basis for selling that just because of the volatility? Because that's just totally hypocritical from what you've been advocating for in your literature. I thought it was really, really fun to watch. I like those types of things.
It just seemed like a very personal attack. Like, I feel it didn't even have anything to do with Bitcoin. It was just a personal attack. But people that have this guy on a pedestal are going to be like, you know what, you're right. And they're not even going to research or do anything. And they're probably going to get rid of their Bitcoin as well, which I feel is completely harmful to what we're trying to do and educate people. Like, don't get rid of your Bitcoin. If you have Bitcoin, hold on to it, because this is the most valuable, in my opinion, the most valuable invention in human history. Why would you want to get rid of it?
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense.
And there's been a lot of comparisons to, you know, Manhattan real estate in 1900s, or like, and a lot of those, you know, they're kind of outlandish in the way they sound. But if you really dig into it, I mean, there's a hard cap of 21 million Bitcoins. I know Going Parabolic is his name on Twitter, or his name's Jason Williams. He said there's right now on Earth, on planet Earth, there's 48.6 or there's 48,000 millionaires, and there's only 21 million Bitcoins. So you do the math. So it's like crazy to think about in perspective. Yeah, I mean, and also going back to like price and scaring people away. I know I was helping my friends. I was helping them set up their 401ks and helping them set up to buy Bitcoin as well. And just kind of like diversifying their portfolio. And they were asking me, the financial markets are confusing as hell. Like right now, Chipotle is selling for over $1,000 per share. And they're like, oh, so Chipotle is more valuable than Apple. I was like, no. Like, okay, well, I'm a learning lesson here. That's not the case. Yes, their stock price is that high, but just because one share of Chipotle is at over $1,000 does not mean that they're more valuable than one share of Apple at $143, $130, whatever it is right now. But I mean, that's easy to assume just by looking at it. You're like, oh, like Chipotle's 10 times more valuable than Apple just because the one share price is that much higher than, you know, Chipotle's done well, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't make it a more valuable company. And it's basically, you have to compare shares to the market cap and the number of outstanding shares and their price. So just a really good learning market moment. And, you know, kind of how we do it with Bitcoin. A lot of people are like, well, Ethereum rose faster, but it's like, yeah, but Bitcoin's market cap is much, much bigger than any other altcoins.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. It was sort of a Freudian slip. You said learning market, but that's what is our market. Like we are in the market to help folks to learn, and like that's where this missed opportunity with Taleb. He said he made a trading, like to your point, Camilla. People are going to make the trade based on what he said, which is a mistake, because if you're solely going to make decisions based on the decisions of others, you're just flowing with the current, and the current isn't always in the right direction. You might go off a waterfall. You have to make sure that you're in a boat where you can row and control yourself in the tide of information. There's misinformation and there's good information. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this show, is to point folks to try and look for their truth as opposed to just reacting. I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions everywhere, whether it's your 401k or Bitcoin. I think it's always relevant. So yeah, that was a good point. Thank you for bringing up that tweet.
Yeah, no, it was such a savage tweet, and I'm loving it. I'm here to see it.
So, Camila, I just want to take you through your journey of getting into Bitcoin. So I know you said you're very new. Ben and I like to consider ourselves very new to Bitcoin as well. Can you give us just a brief synopsis of how you found out about it, how you got into it, and now you know you're the social media marketing manager for SwanBitcoin and all the great things that they're doing right there?
Yeah, of course. So I am fairly new. I may be even more new than you guys, because I really started to dig in deep. Thanksgiving, it was Thanksgiving weekend of last year. So that end of November. But it's funny. So my husband, he started to get into Bitcoin in March of last year, after everything happened with the collapse. But I had no idea he was into it, because we were dating at the time. We weren't married yet. It wasn't until we got married in July, and when we moved in together, that I realized that everything that he listened to, podcasts, videos, it was all Bitcoin. And so I would wake up, what he would be doing is headphones on, listening to a podcast. Oh, what are you listening to? A podcast about Bitcoin. Oh, okay, cool. He would take a shower, put his phone, and it was just like continuous listening of these things. We would get in a car and we would be listening to Citizen Bitcoin. And I didn't know what Bitcoin was, and I didn't take the time to actually sit him down and be like, hey, can you explain this to me? I was just kind of like, oh yeah, like this is his thing, it's cool, whatever.
Tell me about your second life.
Seriously, it wasn't until Thanksgiving, when I saw him having conversations with his parents and his dad, where I saw that he had so much devotion and he learned so much, that made me start paying attention. So oddly enough, he had also brought the Bitcoin Standard, the book, over. And so on our flight back to Colorado, I told him, I was like, I am not going to fall asleep on this airplane ride because that's what I usually do. I take naps. I am actually going to start reading this book. So while he was listening to Bitcoin podcast, I took it upon myself to start reading. And that's when I had like that turmoil inside of me. I mentioned this in another podcast earlier, but when you don't know about Bitcoin, I feel like people just have a blindfold over their eyes. They don't see the truth of what's going on around them. They don't ask themselves, what is money? Which is a super fundamental question to ask yourself. Yet we are always looking for it and are always, working for it, towards it. But as much as you get, you really don't have this type of freedom that everyone's looking for. We're in this rat race of just accumulate, accumulate, accumulate. But what are you accumulating? Something that is literally vanishing and disappearing in value. And so when I came into that realization, like my world just completely changed. I was like, this is better than any drama movie or whatever, because this is the history of our world, the history of money in our world. So I definitely recommend that book to anyone, The Bitcoin Standard, because it's just an amazing way for someone to really ask themselves those hard questions, like what is money? What is the purpose of money, not only in our lives, but in society as a whole, and how fiat money is just, it has wrecked us completely. If you go into what WTF happened in 1971. Have you guys seen that website?
Yes, it's a great site.
It's an amazing website. You look back and you actually do your homework and look at history, and it's like, wow, they really screwed us over. Like, we didn't even exist yet, and these guys just really screwed us over. So it was just eye-opening for me. And then when I discovered Twitter, that was kind of like my entry point. I had no idea this community existed. And I joke about it sometimes when I say I was praying for something like Bitcoin to come into my life, because I feel like I'm a very, how can I call it? In terms of like, I have a very collective perspective. It's not just about like myself, but with everything I've done before, it's like, how can I help others build a better life, or like just have a more optimistic view in life? Like, how can we make people's lives better? But I didn't feel like I was part of any community. And so when I came into Bitcoin Twitter, I found that community, and it was just a roller coaster ride. So it's really funny, because the reason why I got noticed so much is because I made a TikTok video about my experience entering the Twitter Bitcoin world, and that grabbed so much attention that it actually got Swan to notice me. And they approached me and they were like, we've been trying to do something with TikTok for a while, and we think you would be perfect, so would you like to? And Brady, who's Citizen Bitcoin, who my husband had listened to for so long, I was kind of starstruck. I was like, Brady is talking to me right now? Like, I'm a no one in Bitcoin. What is going on? But they were super welcoming, and we got working together. And then when I told them about my background and what I used to do, which was I used to work at a branding agency, I told them about that, and they were like, actually, we need a social media manager. Why don't you come on board? And that's how it started. Just putting myself out there, being super authentic. They noticed that I was Bitcoin only, because a lot of people get into the space and they start talking about Bitcoin, but they start shilling other coins. And so when they saw that my vision was aligned with their vision, they were like, okay, we need to get this girl on our team. So
no, that's fantastic. And congrats on the new role. I think that's really exciting to sort of start getting involved with the community, and then being rewarded for that passion in wanting to educate people and just to share something that you're really passionate about and something that you believe is momentous in history. I'd love to know, like, what you feel is the most powerful thing about Swan. I mean, obviously they approached you, which is always an amazing opportunity to be headhunted by someone. That just always feels good about the ego. But I'd love to know, like, what, from your perspective, sets Swan apart from other brokerages or exchanges rather, and why you're so excited about Swan versus others. I'm going to offer the floor to plug Swan while you're at it.
Cool. Yeah. So SwanBitcoin, you can check them out at swanbitcoin.com. Do you guys have referral links for that? Because I feel like I am not going to show my own referral link. You guys should definitely be shilling that referral link.
We do.
All the
Why don't we post
time.
that on our website? We definitely
Yeah,
will.
we will.
That's a good idea.
Yes. Okay, awesome. But yeah, I was actually a customer of theirs before they even approached me. And when I knew that they were Bitcoin only, that's when I was like, okay, this is definitely different than buying from another exchange that promotes other coins. And something that I really loved about Swan is that you go to their website, they're not just an exchange, but they're really advocates to teach people about Bitcoin, giving them amazing resources on how to get started. They're giving away a free book that was actually written by the CTO, Jan, where anyone can get this book, and it's an amazing entry point to Bitcoin as well. The Bitcoin standard, I feel like it can get a little bit too technical, even though the beginning of it is amazing because of the history that it talks about and stuff, but it does tend to get a little bit technical and may lose some people. But Jan's book is a very beginner-friendly type of book that you can just share with anyone. Guy Swan also did the audiobook version, and it's all free, so there's no excuse whether you have time to read or you can listen to it. It's an amazing resource. And when I saw that they were so huge on educating their audience, that's how I feel we connected. Because when I got into this, I said, I want education about this. It's not just marketing. It's about actually educating people so that when these big names come up on Twitter and they say, I'm getting rid of my Bitcoin, you're like, whoa. I've done my education. I actually understand what Bitcoin is. This guy is crazy. I'm keeping my Bitcoin.
Or he's profit taking. That's what I think it is too.
Yeah. And so the problem I also had with other exchanges is that everyone's going to promote Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin is king. Bitcoin is the one that is like the poster child. But all these other exchanges take advantage of that and then start promoting other coins. Other coins that, in my opinion, are scams. They're experiments that are not going to get as far as Bitcoin, period. And these other exchanges actually make more money by promoting these other coins. So I started to think about companies and brands as people, right? They're actually not just a logo. They have their own personalities, their own archetypes. So when I see that a company is actually being shady and they prefer profits over actually helping people, that to me is a big no. Like, I am not going to do business with you, and I'm actually going to look for the company that wants to be an advocate, an educator, a hero, and that's what I saw in SwanBitcoin. They're not going to, promote crap to you. They're going to promote the best, which is always Bitcoin, and yeah, that's why it was a pleasure for me to get involved with them, because we align so well in our views, and we want people to be Bitcoin only, because like I said, this train is leaving so fast. If you're going to invest money, invest it in the one that's already won.
100%. I think to that point, I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit, is to that point with regard to other brokerages. Obviously, we're big fans of Swan. I've used Cash App before. I still do as well. I kind of do both. But with regard to folks trying to look and kind of cross compare against brokerages, what are some things that you recommend to folks to look out for with regard to like fees, maybe regulatory restrictions, withdrawal restrictions? Like, what are some like really either red flags, but also really good things to look for in an exchange? I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, of course. One of the biggest things that I think it's important is when people buy from exchanges, make sure that you can withdraw your Bitcoin and have custody of your own Bitcoin. Why? And it's funny because in Clubhouse, you hear this all of the time. I bought in Robinhood. I bought Bitcoin in PayPal. How can I withdraw it? And it's super sad when people that know about it say, Unfortunately, you can't. You're going to have to sell your position or keep it there until the company decides that they want to allow people to withdraw. And that's painful. That's super painful. And I feel like that's lying to people. Like I said, when you educate yourself about Bitcoin, you know that the value of it is that you can take custody of it and own it. And when these exchanges don't let you do that, they're actually not selling you Bitcoin. They're selling you IOUs of Bitcoin. It's not the same thing. So that's probably the biggest red flag for me. If the exchange does not allow you to take your Bitcoin and transfer it to your own wallet, then it's, run. don't give these people their money, because it's really sad for you to have to sell your position, and then to have to buy Bitcoin again. Is just a very tricky situation.
Yeah, and it's a costly situation. I just went through that personally on Robinhood. So if anyone's going through this, like, don't feel like you're stupid. You just expect that the company will want to do right by you. But because Bitcoin is considered an asset, you get hit with capital gains tax. Luckily, I'd been holding it for more than a year, so it'll be a 15% hit, but I'm just going to go buy Bitcoin again. So Chris had a really great point that after I sold to $1 cost average out and then dollar cost average in to sort of like mitigate some of the volatility, I tried to buy on the dips, sell on the highs. So it was like a short-term trade, knowing that I'm just going to go buy exactly what I just bought. But like you said, it hurts. It hurts to pay taxes on something that you wanted to keep forever.
Yeah.
And it hurts to be lied to.
It does.
Yeah. And like I was giving Ben the advice, basically exactly what he said, dollar cost average out. Like, so as you take $100 or $1,000 out or however much money and then buy it on Swan, just kind of like dollar cost average out, dollar cost average in. So you're getting some of the gains, but you're paying taxes on it, which stinks. Expanding on the shilling of influencers. I know we've seen lately, Lindsay Lohan was saying like she was all about Bitcoin, and then the very next day she's like, I like 4 different projects. Neo was like, hey, I'm really getting into crypto space. These are the 5 coins that I'm looking at. And then I want Soldier Boy to come on only Bitcoin only, but he's like, no offense to him, but he's like, oh, I want to do Soldier Coin or whatever. Like, no, dude, like it's just Bitcoin. And he's like, oh, I kind of like these other projects. And we're like trying to lead him right down the direction. I know he's kind of getting yelled at by a million different people and voices and all that, but I've just love for one of them to be like, it's Bitcoin and only Bitcoin, not just Elon. I know we all know and love Elon, even his crazy quirkiness of it and his trolling, but like if just one influencer to come on, just be like, it's only Bitcoin. And Russell O'Koon's a great example of that. He says Bitcoin only and Bitcoin only. He's been doing that since 2017 or 2018. He gets paid in Bitcoin. Like we need more people like him.
This is my problem with celebrities and Bitcoin, especially on Twitter. And it was amazing bringing back Soldier Boy. I have like a love-hate relationship with him because obviously when I grew up, I would listen to his music, do his
dance though?
Yeah.
I can too. I love that dance. It's like the only dance. It's the only thing I got. It's my only dance.
Exactly. And so oddly enough, he was on Clubhouse, and he created a Clubhouse. I think it was just like to have fun, like talk with girls. But then one Bitcoiner got in the audience and then started asking him Bitcoin questions. And then the story is, because I got into the room a little late, but the story is that Soldier Boy just started kicking all these girls down to have a Bitcoin conversation with this Bitcoiner. And this Bitcoiner started to bring a whole bunch of other people up. And it became just like an orange pilling type of thing. And what does it mean
to like go up or down? I have an Android, so I haven't been.
We need to get him an iPhone.
Yeah. So Clubhouse is a very interesting type of dynamic. So you have, when you go inside a room, you start out in the audience. So think about it as a stage, right? So you have the audience, you have the people that are up on stage that are actually able to talk, and then you have a moderator that can kind of go like behind the scenes and kind of like tell people to go back to the audience so that they're not able to speak, and just let the people on stage have a conversation. So all these girls pushed down to the stage because I guess a very important Bitcoin conversation was about to go down. And what I noticed about that conversation was that he does not know Bitcoin. He does not understand Bitcoin. A lot of these people just see it as a number go up type of thing. Oh, that's so cool. And then they're like, well, what are other things that I can get into that are potentially going to go up just like Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm.
There's not. That's that's the punchline. There aren't. And so all of these Bitcoiners started asking him a whole bunch of questions, and he was like, wait, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. It's like those very basic facts he didn't even know about. So that's what's dangerous about these celebrities that start tweeting their thoughts. They don't know. They haven't taken the time, like we said, to actually sit down, study Bitcoin to understand it. And it's really sad. Lindsay Lohan is like, well, these other coins can potentially pay you so that you can promote their coins. You know what I mean? There's no one in Bitcoin that's going to pay these celebrities to promote the coins because Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's not owned by anyone. There's no CEO behind it. There's no marketing team behind it.
Unless
these
they buy it and give it out. But why would you do that?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Fold does it, but it's small. It's like $5 worth.
And you have to pay a fee to get in. So it's even like they're buying Bitcoin with the fees they're collecting, and then they're dealing it out as they get rewards and stuff. So
exactly. So these celebrities are just spewing nonsense, and it's like I said, the people that have them on pedestals are just going to follow them blindly without actually realizing that they have no education behind this. Something I love about Cash App though is the people that they're recruiting. They shill Bitcoin, and it's Bitcoin only, and they'll do these promotions with Megan Thee Stallion actually did this campaign with Cash App where she said, leave your tag below and I'll send you some Bitcoin. I was one of the fortunate people that actually got it. And this was back awesome. In December. When it was like around 17,000. Bitcoin was around 17,000. And so what's really funny though is that I can see a lot of people not understanding what Bitcoin is or the value of Bitcoin, and then being like, oh cool, she gave this to me, let me cash it out for cash and then buy something else. So obviously I didn't do that, right? And I've actually, something that I want to do this year is post a monthly video just to see how much what she gave me has grown over time.
That would
and
be
kind of
awesome.
Talk about that low time preference. Like, don't think about right now, like what you can do with that. Think about how this can potentially grow in the future and, see how it grows. So luckily enough, the last time I did an update, yes, it did go up. It went up like $50 based on what she gave me. So I'm super curious to see what it's going to be like the end of the year.
Yeah, that's crazy. And going along with all these, like the numbers go up on everything, not to be like the Debbie Downer, but just looking at the markets. I mean, in these last 11 months, we've printed 40% of all fiat currency that's ever been created. And I know that's hard for people to wrap their minds around. Right now, everything's overpriced, it seems. I mean, Bitcoin we see is undervalued, or at least that's the way I evaluate it. I'm not here to, push people's perspective one way or the other, but right now the stock market's overinflated. Housing prices with interest rates being super low. I kind of use interest rates as like a teeter-totter or like a seesaw. So as interest rates come down, the prices of things go up because you can get, it's the cost of capital or the cost of cash is that much cheaper. But I kind of see, and this is not to say like, oh, like there's going to be a crash. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. Right now we're on an upswing across all asset classes. I can kind of see in 2023 or in 2024 when Jerome Powell, he said they're not raising interest rates, so they don't predict to raise interest rates till 2023 or 2024. When they do that, I see a lot of things crashing down, or cycles. There are two things: interest rates go up, or if they stop printing money. Right now, they're not stopping to do either one of those things, but when they do, there's going to be a crash down to reality. So just all investments, you should be very careful. I could see Bitcoin having a crash around that time too. I'm going to see that as a huge buying opportunity. And, if you see asset classes across the board as long-term plays, I definitely see Bitcoin is, this is me evaluating it. So like I said, don't just only take my advice, but I see it as a 100x asset, which you're not going to get off a house. You're not going to get off any stock. If you do get it off a stock, it's probably because you were in with the IPO or they're just printing money out the wazoo. So it's just something to be careful of and something to be wary of. But yeah, I definitely, protecting yourself is important.
Yeah, I'm gonna challenge the parallel of necessarily Bitcoin price dropping if there's sort of a reversion to the mean with regard to asset valuations. In my opinion, the only reason why assets, and by assets I mean like stocks and the equities market going back to their like proper valuation would be because I think that it would be priced against Bitcoin. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest like tumultuous markets will be if, and this is an if assets are priced against Bitcoin, because what I see will be massive crashes to equities in them being reverting towards a proper valuation and Bitcoin skyrocketing because there's the stability of the $120 trillion in the fixed income market that is getting zero to negative yield. So these bonds, these pension funds are going to be like, oh, number go up. Bitcoin is scarce, and I can guarantee that I have an asset that's going to inflate in price programmatically into perpetuity because the supply is fixed. If demand goes up and supply stays the same, price goes up. So it's like the first time where you can guarantee that an asset can appreciate into foreverness, and you don't have to worry about the cash flows of a company. So that's my thesis that I'm standing by, is that I think that there will be a tremendous crash in equities because 1,000 PE on any company that's like 15 years old is just ridiculous to me. Yeah. I just don't see how that's sustainable.
And Preston definitely alluded to that as well. And I have so much respect for Preston. He's such a smart mind. I love listening to his podcast weekly. Wednesdays he does the Bitcoin episodes. But yeah, I mean, that's literally like what the Bitcoin standard is all about and how it comes about, basically.
It's going up.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people say that, oh, Bitcoin is still speculative. We don't know what's going to happen. But if you really think about it, we are living exactly what Satoshi Nakamoto intended us to live. This is the way it's been designed.
Sounds prophetic.
It has been correct ever since it was invented. There's nothing speculative about this because by design, this is what it was created to do. So you want to know volatility? It's exactly anything in the fiat world. Anything in the fiat world is volatile. A lot of people say that Bitcoin is volatile. Not really. When you look back and see things just start going up and up and up in the grand scheme of things, this nothing is stopping this.
Yeah, Chris, and I'll let you ask your question. But when you ask like grandparents, if you're still blessed to have them in your life, and you talk about like what was the cost to go to the movies, and they say a nickel, the dollar doesn't get to keep its value. But Bitcoin, if you just had Bitcoin, I think I just read an article where if you invested $100 in Bitcoin in 2010, you'd have $48 million today, excluding compounding. It's a pretty good deal. That nickel would have went a long way. But go ahead, Chris. I keep stepping on your toes here.
No, it's fine. It's a great conversation. So Camila, I mean, we love SwanBitcoin. We love the educational aspect. And I remember you mentioned the book they gave away. I think it's Investing in Bitcoin is the name of the book. Investing Bitcoin or Investing in Bitcoin. I think that's the name of the book. I have it. It's great. I know when you sign up, you can get a free copy of it. But we'd love to hear your perspective of being, you're more on the brokerage side of things. I know you're a user of your own product or your company, but what's it like being, being rules and regulations and kind of dealing with the SEC? I know you're more of the social media side, but just being kind of a brokerage for people.
So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen, because I'm fairly new with them, like only 2 weeks that I've actually been full-time, but they're really amazing and kind of including the whole team with everything that's going on. They're super transparent in that end as well, which I truly appreciate. One of the things that is definitely a challenge is when people are asking, oh, when Swan in Canada? When Swan in Europe? Because it's such an amazing product that people are demanding it. Unfortunately, we have to tell them, that's not in the books right now because of regulation and stuff. Is super hard to work with every individual country and their regulations and stuff. It would be like a huge headache. So something that Swan did to kind of overstep that, even though it's definitely not the solution because it doesn't serve people that are just, like a college student or something that doesn't have a lot of money. But something that they did is that they're now accepting wire transfers that are for $50,000 and above, from companies from other countries. And this is actually a service that is now called Swan Private. And what's amazing about it is that we actually got Robert Breedlove to be in charge of that. So he's also now full-time with Swan, and having Breedlove just deal with all of these people. I am a true believer that Breedlove was a key person in order to get Elon to buy Bitcoin for Tesla, because if you guys know, Breedlove is kind of the person that talked to Michael Saylor. And so when you look at the Twitter feed, they actually had this interaction where Breedlove challenged Elon about thinking about money in a different way. Michael Saylor jumps in and it's like, oh yeah, I bought this much Bitcoin. And then Elon was like, you can actually buy that much in one transaction. Like, you could just see the conversation flowing. And so I give a lot of props to Breedlove, and I'm super excited that he's part of the team where he will actually get these bigger clients and kind of take them down the rabbit hole of what Bitcoin is and why it should be with an exchange like Swan, because we're definitely going to take care of them and have huge interest in their success as well. So regulation side is tough, especially when you want to serve everyone all over the world. But I believe we're in a point in Bitcoin where we're still very early. It's a very early stage. As time goes by, these are issues that we're going to be able to resolve, because nobody can get away from Bitcoin. And, and we want to continue to give good service to everyone. So.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, I have all the respect for Preston Pish. I mean, the way that I really got orange pilled is I always listen to his podcast, and in the quarterly mastermind conversations where they go over what their favorite stock picks are, Preston said in, I think, March, right as the crash was happening, that Bitcoin was his one. And then in June, he said Bitcoin again. And I've been listening to the podcast for a few years now and trying to listen back on it. No one has ever picked a stock multiple times, or at least not over the same time frame. Like, normally if you picked ExxonMobil like 5 years ago, or Google 5 years ago, it's still a good pick today. But he picked Bitcoin in back-to-back masterclasses. And that was really in June of last year when I was like, oh crap. Like, if Preston's recommending this twice, this is something I definitely need to look into. And then the first Bitcoin conversation was either first or second was with Robert Breedlove. And I remember there was a Twitter thread at the end of the year, like, what was your favorite podcast episode for the whole year? And I said Preston Pish and Robert Breedlove's conversation. And Robert, he's commented on things that I posted on our Twitter page and liked a bunch of my posts. I have all the utmost respect for both him and Preston. I definitely really owe it to them for me getting into Bitcoin. I was actually going to allude to that, though. Swan Bitcoin, you guys are picking up all the talent, whether it's you or Robert Breedlove or Brecky, or I definitely want in the show notes to have a list of all the people from your company. I think I follow all of them, but if you could just give me a good list of their Twitter handles, we'll definitely tell people to follow them. I'll warn our listeners that they can be very trolly at times, but it's out of being sincere. That if anything, I know Brecky is not one to hide his disapproval of altcoins, or he has other acronyms or other words or names for those altcoins. I won't say them on the episode.
Expletives.
Expletives for those coins. I know, and you were speaking about pricing things. Like right now, he posted and you retweeted, or at least someone did, the altcoins and their price in Bitcoin. So when a lot of times altcoins will say they had an all-time high, which is true relative to fiat dollars or US dollars or whatever measure of account you want to account for. But there was a chart showing that they're all-time highs by comparison of Bitcoin, and none of them are close. And even the ones that are close, it's because it's a brand new coin that's only been out for 2 weeks. So it hasn't had time to get separated away. But all of the altcoins, it priced in Bitcoin, are nothing. And it's crazy to look at. And that's not only just in altcoins, that's going to be coming for equities and bonds. And that's kind of why I see it even for real estate. It's like the best asset in the world. And like I said, you got to do your own research, and it's very important to do so. But yeah, that's just the one little comment I wanted to add. So we'll begin our wrap up here if you want to start us off, Ben.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to just start wrapping up, just given the time. But Camila, first of all, thank you so much for being on the show. This was such an awesome conversation. And I just love to see such passionate people talk about this topic. And I'm really excited to follow you at Swan. Every time I dollar cost average into Bitcoin, I'll be thinking, Camila, thanks for the buy. One thing I do want to ask is for folks who are new to the space, and like we really alluded to this on this episode, but for folks that are new to Bitcoin, how would you recommend that they start learning about it? Because you just see so much, like you were saying, Chris, Soldier Boy's talking about it. It's good that everyone's talking about it. And I get the point that like we have our thesis on where we stand with Bitcoin, but I think it's good that people are talking about it. Not everyone's going to have like an expert knowledge on everything, but it is good for everyone to have an approach and strategy to filter through that noise. What resources would you direct folks to, get started and really to dig in and learn a little bit more about Bitcoin?
I definitely recommend to listen to maximalists. The reason why is because these maximalists are not closed-minded, they're open-minded, and they already have gone through the journey about these other coins. They've already experimented with them. They saw that it wasn't the best investment. So I feel like that's why they're so strong in their conviction that Bitcoin is it, because these things are just distractions, and that's what newcomers need to avoid. Distractions, things that look shiny and super promising when in reality they're not. So I would definitely recommend, like I said before, get educated. Take the time. I had a girl tell me, oh, can you teach me about Bitcoin? But I don't have the time to educate myself. And I was just like, you can't get into this if you're not going to be willing to take the time to educate, because it's not just something that, you buy without understanding. For you to really understand its true value, you have to take the time to educate. There's podcasts if you don't have time to read a book. My top recommendations, I love Preston Pitch. Preston Pitch has amazing conversations about Bitcoin. He is definitely a huge one. Listen to Robert Breedlove. He has a show on YouTube called What is Money? And he really goes down the rabbit hole of making you ask yourself what money is and what money is now in our current fiat system, and what money should be in order for us to have a more prosperous life individually and as a society. Definitely read Jan's book, Inventing Bitcoin. Just there's so much good information with experts that have actually done the homework and that actually convey that Bitcoin gospel and evangelize about it. And so I think it's super important to where you get your information from. That's where I started getting my information from in the get-go. And a lot of people asked me, and they were intrigued, like, how did you become so bullish on Bitcoin if you're brand new? How did you avoid all of those other things? And it just came down to me telling all of these people, like, we've already been through different cycles. 2017 already happened. I wasn't a part of that cycle. There's people from that cycle that learned a lot about valuable things, and they talk about it now. There's so many resources that people can look into where it's actually valuable information, not just a random tweet about someone tweeting about Bitcoin. I tweeted when Elon even tweeted about it, I was like, don't trust people just because they put Bitcoin in their bio. It goes back to the whole thesis of don't trust to verify. Make sure that you verify that that information is actually valuable before you believe in it blindly. So I'm actually going to share a link with you guys that it's like a list of resources that the Swan team put together that is not just Swan related. It's actually like books that you can read, podcasts that you can listen to. Marty and Bent, they're amazing podcasters as well that go deep down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to share that with you guys if you guys want to put it on the notes, because there's so many amazing resources. Yeah, but I feel like it will really benefit people for when they start going down the rabbit hole. Make sure you're going down the proper rabbit hole, because there's a lot of other holes that you can get yourself into, and you're going to regret that you ever went down that path. So yeah, there's so many good things, and it just makes me even more bullish because we have this information now. We need to take advantage of it.
No, that's great advice. Thank you, Camila. And also, please send any and all links. Just a shameless plug. Chris and I are working on a newsletter for the amateur investors. So hopefully by the time this episode airs, we'll have that up and running for folks to at least start to subscribe. We're going to be trying to give out the show notes in an email, sort of like a weekly subscription thing. So we'll make sure that everything gets cited for sure. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to get the link.
I'm just so hyped about you guys. Like this is amazing.
Thank you for supporting this project. We're absolutely going to share and support you going forward. Just thank you so much for supporting this project.
It means a lot to us.
It does. One question I do want to ask, and I always ask a guest this, is one, it seems like you have just a ton of successes going on right now, but I always like to stop and reflect on what was the biggest investment mistake that you've ever made, if you have one, and if not, keep it rolling.
So it's really funny when it comes to investing. My mentality has never been to invest in stuff because I wasn't really financially educated before getting down this rabbit hole. But one of my biggest things is that I'm proud of is that I never took out a college loan. I actually lived with my parents throughout college to make sure that I could save up as much and as I could. I think my biggest investment mistake is to not have invested in Bitcoin earlier when I first heard about it.
Retweet.
And this was
I think that's all of us.
Yeah. And this was back in, I want to say it was 2017. Someone mentioned Bitcoin, but it was just a word that, you know, I just didn't care about. It didn't. And the way it was introduced to me, it wasn't like it could make me want to learn about it. It was just kind of a story of like, I bought this and now I'm rich. And I was just like, okay, you sound like a douchebag. I don't want to engage in this conversation. You know, that is my biggest regret, not knowing about this or actually taking the time to learn about it a lot earlier. I do want to leave you guys with this though, because I feel like a lot of people feel like they're late to the party. Even Elon himself said that he felt like he was late to the Bitcoin party. You're not late to the Bitcoin party. You are so early. You are so early in order to get a piece of what this is. And it doesn't matter if people don't have enough to buy a whole Bitcoin. The point is that this is a system where you can opt out, like we said earlier, give more value to the time and work and money that you're putting in right now, and just stay focused on Satoshis. Stack as many Satoshis as you can. Go wild about Satoshis. Satoshis are super cheap right now. I think like you can get 2,000 Satoshis for like $1 or something like that. Those are numbers that those are numbers we're not going to be seeing maybe in a year, you know? So take advantage of it. Don't get into this greedy mindset like, oh, I can't have a whole Bitcoin, so I'm not going to get into Bitcoin. Dude, you can buy a whole Satoshi and keep stacking Satoshis until you become a Satoshi millionaire or whatever. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is that just get in with what you can, whether it's $5, $10, dollar cost average. Swan can do this for you. I think about it as a savings account where it's like I'm putting this much in weekly and I don't even think about it, and it starts accumulating over time. So just start. Don't be afraid to start. Put a little bit in, put a little bit of skin in the game, and it's the best thing you can do. Don't make my investing mistake be your investing mistake.
For sure.
Start now.
I love it.
And I always see with investing, when I put my money where my mouth is, you can evaluate, death by analysis, basically. If you're evaluating a stock or real estate or whatever, you want to be smart about it. But if you wait too long on it, you get lost in analysis paralysis. And like, at least put $5 in and kind of see where it goes. If it's a good investment or a bad investment, and then you're like, okay, maybe I should put more into this. And that's kind of the best way to start. So I love asking everyone. So Ben loves asking the mistake. I always love, if you have one book, one podcast, one YouTube channel, what's your favorite go-to source? I know there's so many great ones, but if you just had one to listen to, what would it be?
You're stranded on an island.
One thing you could take with you. One book, one podcast, one YouTube channel.
Oh man, this is like one of the toughest questions of my life.
You don't have to out anyone. You don't have to say it's not good. It's just, this is the one I'm going with.
I truly want to recommend Citizen Bitcoin.
Okay.
So this is Brady's podcast, and what I love about it so much is that it's very pleasant to listen to, and it's just very human. And something that he's really working on is to try to get the perspective of not just the Western perspective of Bitcoin in USA, but he's actually getting voices from normal people like us that are here, that are in Africa, that are in Venezuela, and just getting the perspective of how Bitcoin is not just about us getting rich here. Bitcoin is so much bigger than that. And there are so many voices out there that he wants to put in his podcast. So I think I would choose that one just because it's very human, where you get a lot of amazing content when it comes to Bitcoin, but it kind of gives that level to playing field where you're listening to other perspectives, because it's so easy to just get inside this bubble where you're not really looking outwards, but there's so much more work to be done, and Bitcoin is making an impact around the world. So I really value that.
Awesome. So once again, thank you so much, seriously, for coming on the show. If someone wants to learn more about you or about Swan Bitcoin, how would you recommend them to find you online?
Yeah, so my handle for Twitter and Instagram is Camila Campton, which I'm pretty sure you guys will write it down and someone needs
Absolutely.
it. My DMs are open for anyone. I may take a little bit to respond, but I promise that I respond to every single one. On Clubhouse, also, if you're on Clubhouse, Camila Campton, I must admit that I'm not as vocal as I am right now, because I feel like I'm still a sponge and like to just try to get everything in my mind as quickly as possible. But if people want to connect with these other speakers, I feel like I have a good relationship where I can just kind of, bridge that gap, make those introductions, and kind of like guide people right down the right rabbit hole.
We might have to take you up on that.
Yeah, no, guys, totally go for it. They're amazing people and that's what I love about this. There's so much selfishness. When people really want to learn and are eager to learn and want to make the right connections, they're right there for you. We're a community. So
yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Camila, so much for taking the time to come on the show. We're going to make sure that we get all the resources, all the links that you shared with us, share it with our community. Chris, I'll hand it off to you for any wrap-up comments.
Yeah, no, as long as you know how to reach us either by Twitter or by email, whatever's easy for you. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. We can't thank you enough. We appreciate you and the company SwanBitcoin. Let Corey know we say thank you from us as customers. It's a great product. We highly recommend our users look into it and use it as well. So
yeah, thank you to everyone in our audience for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll be back next week.
Sounds good.
And smash that like button.
Smash that like button.
We don't do that enough. We don't promote our own stuff. So definitely smash the like button.
You guys definitely should.
Have a good one, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Bye.